story is contemporary and consequential for India. Coming out of the shadow of Operation Sindoor that saw proper Pumelling at the hands of India's armed forces, Pakistan still marked the anniversary of its nuclear tests this week on May 28. There was clear nuclear signaling during the military standoff, with the Pakistani Defense Minister, some of its parliamentarians, and their ambassador to Moscow hissing of the possibility of a nuclear escalation. It is likely that Pakistan used it as a bargaining chip with the Americans for negotiations. Again, it is not the first time that Pakistan has used its rogue bomb to blackmail the international community. Every time there's been a hot military situation with India, from the Kargil war to the Balakot airstrikes, Pakistan has sought to use its nuclear umbrella as a tool to attain its geopolitical objectives. Realizing early on that it won't be ever able to stand against India's conventional superiority, Pakistan worked on getting an atom bomb, even if it had to beg, borrow, steal, thieve, smuggle, executing a corrupt operation spread over decades. The story of Pakistan's atom bomb is also a story of theft and robbery, cheating and chicanery. There was no merit. There was no talent pool. There was no integrity. Pakistan hoodwinked the Committee of Nations in getting its bomb. This is the second aspect on which Pakistan has become the migraine of the world. The first, of course, being its indulgence with radical Islamism and extremism-born terrorism as a state policy. This edition, let us take a hard look at how Pakistan got its bomb, the Muslim bomb, which is now a tool of blackmail in its hands. Pakistan came out with its bomb, atom bomb, through these tests in the Chagai hills of Balochistan on May 28, 1998. In doing so, Pakistan was only responding to India's Shakti tests a fortnight earlier, carried out by the Vajpayee government. While for India, those were validation tests, India's nuclear capacity having come out in 1974 itself with the Bhutto tests. For Pakistan, Chagai was the first. Of course, Pakistan did not make its bomb in a fortnight. The Chagai tests were only the culmination of a 3-decade-long pursuit based on a global network of theft and espionage, smuggling and corruption, begging and borrowing, just so that Pakistan could get an equalizer with an upwardly mobile neighbor, India.
Today, at 15:45 hours, India conducted 3 underground nuclear tests in the Pokhran range. These tests conducted today were with a fission device, a low-yield device, and a thermonuclear device.
An equalizer based on which Pakistan thought that it would deter India from launching any offensive strikes, even as it unleashed its low-intensity war of terror in Kashmir. Operation Sindoor and the heavy costs inflicted have proven that the nuclear overhang was just a fool's fancy for Pakistan. Even before, the Balakot airstrikes and the Uri surgical strikes have shown India's capability to carve out a tactical space to launch offensives deep inside Pakistani territory without succumbing to the nuclear blackmail.
Have we achieved our objective of decimating that terrorist camp? And the answer is a thumping yes. And the results are for the whole world to see. All our pilots are back home.
Let's look at the story of how this nuclear blackmail came about. This man, A.Q. Khan or Abdul Qadir Khan, also known as the father of the Pakistani bomb, was just the face of that Pakistani effort which cheated nations, bypassed international law, blackmailed the Americans, collaborated with rogue regimes, dealt with the grey markets to create the Pakistani bomb. Khan, of course, was turned into a scapegoat too once his utility was over. From Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who pulled out Khan from a European nuclear research lab, to General Pervez Musharraf, who ordered his banishment, Khan was used by the system, both the civilian and the military governments, and thrown out once the network of theft and proliferation stood exposed. But even from before Khan, Pakistan had been trying to ape India's nuclear program. Their leader Bhutto famously said as far back as 1965 that his nation would eat grass if needed, but would compete with India on nuclear bomb and everything else. In January 1972, barely a month after the defeat at the hands of India in the Bangladesh Liberation War, Bhutto, now the Prime Minister of Pakistan, organized a conference of all Muslim nations in Islamabad. He followed it up with a whirlwind tour of key Islamic countries: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey, Syria, Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, and finally Libya, selling the idea of a Muslim bomb. The Christians had the bomb in the USA, UK, France. Communists had in Russia and China. The Jews had the bomb in Israel. In 1974, Buddha smiled in the desert of Rajasthan, and the Hindus too now had the bomb.
It would indicate that we have already succumbed to the threat. This would be disastrous for our national determination to maintain the fullness of our independence. Let me make it clear that we are determined not to be intimidated by this threat. I give a solemn pledge to all my countrymen that we will never let Pakistan be a victim of nuclear blackmail. This means not only that we will never surrender our rights or claims because of India's nuclear status.
Bhutto desperately wanted an Islamic bomb at any cost. But such was the state of affairs in Pakistan that Bhutto came to know of India's Pokhran tests through a BBC broadcast. A livid Bhutto summoned Pakistan's then chief of the nuclear setup, Munir Ahmad Khan, who was at that time giving a lecture on use of nuclear technology for better tomato and onion crops at the Peshawar University. Trained in the West with 13 years at the IAEA in the Nuclear Power and Reactor Division, Munir had many friends and contacts across Europe. Still, with limited talent pool around him, and even more limited technological base from which Pakistan worked at that time, Munir was not able to move much as head of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. Impatient Bhutto wanted a bomb by hook or by crook. And that's when entered the crook, A.Q. Khan. Born in Bhopal, this Surma Bhopali was living in Denmark with his European wife and 2 children when India conducted its first nuclear tests in 1974. Having acquired 3 engineering degrees, 1 each in Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands, Khan was working at the Almelo plant of a nuclear materials company involved in uranium enrichment. Ambitious Khan saw an opportunity in India's nuclear tests and wrote directly to Bhutto, offering his services, and was duly summoned to Islamabad. To test his claims, Khan was first tasked with fast-tracking a rudimentary Pakistani bomb program by filling the gaps in the know-how of Munir's team. The crook in Khan proved up to the task. He had already gained crucial tech understanding about centrifuges-based uranium enrichment at Urenco. He fixed a photocopy machine at his brother's home and gathered a mine of classified information that would be shipped back home to Pakistan. On its own, this knowledge would have taken a decade or more for Pakistan to master. A year later, Bhutto asked Khan to shift base to Islamabad in 1975 and was integrated into the Pak nuclear program as a co-equal of Munir. A.Q. Khan hit the ground running, launching the secret uranium enrichment plan codenamed Project 706. The difference between Khan and Munir was that of hustle, which later became a complex, full-fledged theft and proliferation operation blessed by the Pakistani state. Khan, with his 15 years of experience in Europe, gamed the laws, gamed the industry, and in some cases benefited purely from the business rivalries of European public and private firms involved in nuclear manufacturing and trade. Bhutto provided whatever else was needed through diplomacy and funds. From his earlier trip to Muslim nations, Libya's Muammar Gaddafi was the most forthcoming with aid, estimates of which vary from $100 to 500 million in those times. Gaddafi also facilitated illicit transfer of uranium ore, the yellow cake as it is called, from Nigeria and Niger to Pakistan, expecting, of course, in return that Pakistan would aid his own nuclear bomb program. If you have ever wondered why the cricket stadium in Lahore is named after the African dictator, now you know. Bhutto named it after Gaddafi as a show of gratitude. Subsequently, of course, some other Muslim nations backed Pakistan's nuclear program. Parallelly, Bhutto signed a deal with China in 1976. Under this, Pakistan would let the Chinese study a Canadian reactor they had as a gift from Canada in the 1950s for peaceful nuclear energy. While the Chinese copied and reverse engineered this Western technology, the Pakistanis observed and learned on the job. Pakistan was doing the dummy's job, procuring Western equipment on the sly, which the Chinese would reverse engineer for them. This helped the Chinese also to fast-track their own technology and get some exposure to Western ways. The Pakistanis, of course, in the bargain, inching closer to their bomb. But despite all the theft, despite all the technological know-how, despite all the hustle of Abdul Qadir Khan, things were still not moving fast enough. Half a decade had passed since the Indian tests, when General Zia-ul-Haq deposed and executed Bhutto and took over the reins. An impatient Zia connected with China again, sent his emissary by the name of Lieutenant General Naqvi along with Khan and got 50 kgs of highly enriched uranium from Beijing in a special aircraft. Plus, the Chinese gifted a bomb design which the Pakistanis faithfully replicated. In return, they sought more of the Western technology which the Khan network readily obliged with. Look at this page from the book Eating Grass, The Making of the Pakistani Bomb. It says that when the Pakistanis wanted to return the loaned enriched uranium, the Chinese asked them to keep it as their thank you gift for having provided the centrifuges. By the early 1980s, China had provided the blueprint for the bomb, highly enriched uranium, key components, and also the scientists who would assemble the parts into a whole at the Kahuta plant. Without China's help, Pakistan's bomb would not exist. All through this, the United States played a kabhi haan kabhi na role which would sustain the Pakistani bomb program. Many of its scientists who worked on the bomb had done their PhDs and research at American or European nuclear facilities through the 1950s and 1960s. A.Q. Khan himself was a product of that education and work experience in Germany and Denmark. The US also provided the first research reactor to Pakistan as part of the Atoms for Peace program. By the late 1970s, with the coming of the Russians into the Afghan theater, America turned a complete blind eye towards the Pakistani program. As part of the Reagan-Zia-ul-Haq deal, the CIA pumped in US $3.2 billion into the Afghan jihad, all of it channelized through the Pak ISI. This was also the period when Islamabad was managing the China pivot of American policy from Henry Kissinger and Nixon days. Such was the indulgence that when in 1985, the US Congress enacted a law that required the American president to certify that Pakistan was not building nuclear weapons to keep its eligibility for receiving military and economic aid, both Reagan and Bush Sr. certified just that. Imagine the complicity of Americans. Despite knowing that Pakistan, in fact, had already built a nuclear weapon with Chinese help, basically, America looked the other way so long as the Pakistanis avoided going hot with a test and did not show a bomb at their National Military Day parade. By 1990, Pakistan had built about a dozen warheads. The number now stands at over 100, all based on Chinese design. Chinese technology and assisted by Chinese scientists in that period. Chinese magnets for producing weapons-grade enriched uranium, a Chinese furnace for shaping the uranium into a nuclear bomb core, and high-tech diagnostic equipment for nuclear weapons tests. As for its bomb, so for the missiles. Beginning early 1990s, Pakistan started getting the M11 and M9 series of Chinese missiles, renamed them Hatf and Shaheen. The shipments were tracked, prompting the Chinese to set up a manufacturing shop in Pakistan's Fatehjung, where totally knocked down kits of these missiles would get assembled. Parallelly, Korean Nodong missiles were procured and renamed Gauri-1. North Korean crews supervised the test launches in 1998, with the Taepedong missile getting renamed as Gauri-2 and Gauri-3 with varied ranges. As in the case of China, so with North Korea. Pakistan traded the centrifuge technology of West to purchase the missiles and did reverse engineering in the presence of Korean engineers. Imagine, during the Second Afghan War, America fired some Tomahawk missiles from the Arabian Sea-based naval assets over the Pakistani territory into Afghanistan. Some of those misfired and fell into Balochistan, which were quickly picked up by the Pakistanis and handed over to the Chinese, who then reverse engineered and turned them into their DH-10 missiles, the export version of which came back into the hands of Pakistan, and they renamed those as Babar missile. Do you see a pattern? Gauri, Ghaznavi, Babar, Abdali. Almost all the Pakistani missiles are named after the Islamic invaders who ravaged India in those medieval times. Khan had an ignominious exit, having overseen the making of the Pakistani bomb, having been given the highest of Pakistani civilian awards and honors. A.Q. Khan thought he was above law. He was a national hero feted across the country on campuses and social events. Success went to his head. His achievements, born of corruption, greed took over, and the smuggling network that Khan put in place over decades for the Pakistani bomb easily dovetailed into an illicit proliferation system after he moved out of the government and set up a private company in Dubai in the early 2000s. The network stayed a step ahead of regulation and export controls based on relationships with middlemen and front companies, and recruited technical experts through bribery and deception. Goes without saying that Khan continued to enjoy state protection. He would sign off his letters as cabinet minister in the Prime Minister's office, which could not have happened without a nod from the Pak establishment. Clandestine money laundering was an important component of the operations, but he was under the watch of Americans this time. In February of 2000, Khan sought a chartered flight from Turkey, which took a refueling stop at Zahedan in Iran. A similar chartered flight went to North Korea from Islamabad carrying suspect cargo. In early 2003, the IAEA confirmed Iran's construction of a pilot centrifuge facility in Natanz and revealed evidence that Pakistan had a role in it. Later that year, a German ship was seized in the Mediterranean by the Americans. It carried nuclear equipment procured from a company in Malaysia and was headed to Libya. Khan had got them made at a precision casting engineering factory in Malaysia, another Muslim country. The ship carried the components from Malaysia to Dubai, where it was relabeled as used machinery and now was headed to Libya. This was a tactic of disguising end user by relabeling and changing shipping routes to dodge intelligence agencies on the ground and spy satellites above. Khan used his position as a special advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan to carry on with this illicit nuclear trade. This was the post-9/11 world, of course. Something had to give. The then CIA Director George Tenet approached General Musharraf, by then the Chief Executive of Pakistan, with evidence of Khan's role in proliferation of nuclear technology and fissile material to Iran, North Korea, and Libya. Tenet told Musharraf that so far as the Americans were concerned, Khan was as dangerous, if not more, than Osama bin Laden, and that he had to act. Read the Riot Act, Musharraf made a virtue out of necessity by making Khan own up to his actions and was put under house arrest, in which he remained till 2009. He was released by a court, but his stature had considerably diminished within Pakistan. This was the same period in which India put its own nuclear bomb hero, APJ Abdul Kalam, to be the president of the country. The contrast between India's clean indigenous nuclear program and that of dark, corrupt Pakistani bomb could not have been clearer.
The investigation has established that many of the reported activities did occur and that these were inevitably initiated at my behest. In my interviews with the concerned government officials, I was confronted with the evidence and the findings, and I have voluntarily admitted that much of it is true and accurate.
On coming out of his house arrest, Khan fired salvos at all governments that had jockeyed on his shoulders for the bomb, from Bhutto to Musharraf. Through interviews, Khan sought to create a picture that from thieving the bomb to smuggling it to other nations, he was a mere cog in a corrupt regime that Pakistan built, reflecting its own society. Let me show you how Khan was not alone. Just that he was the famous face. Khan's rival and head of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, Sultan Bashiruddin Mahmud, who retired in 1999, met Osama bin Laden in the summer of 2001 in Afghanistan. The two discussed nuclear weapons just a month before 9/11. Mahmud had set up his own shop like Khan by the name of Ummah Tamir-e-Naw. He later claimed that while he met bin Laden only once, he met Al-Qaeda leader Mullah Omar several times. Imagine this was happening when the Americans were present in full force with boots on the ground in Afghanistan. Mahmud was arrested by Musharraf on American insistence and was grilled by the CIA on bin Laden, apparently to no avail. This even as Mahmud failed several polygraph tests, which means he was lying through his teeth during the questioning. In fact, Libya's head of intelligence at that time, Musa Kusa, spilled the beans over to the Americans that Mahmud had offered assistance with building of nuclear bomb. He was clearly competing with his former rival, A.Q. Khan, who is still well ensconced in the Khan research lab, was already working with the Libyans for their bomb. Imagine again, a top Pakistani scientist meeting Osama bin Laden, and yet it took a decade more for the Americans to get to their fugitive of law right under the nose of the Pakistan army when they took out Laden in Abbottabad in 2011. This then is the story of the Pakistan's atom bomb, the dirty bomb, the Muslim bomb that Bhutto imagined and all subsequent governments worked to realize. The only atom bomb in the world that passes the Kalma test, perhaps, even if it fails all other tests of morality. Thanks for watching.
दादी के हाथों का जादू और खुशबू से महकता घर, माँ की मुस्कुराहट और खाने की सुगंध। MDH गरम मसाला,
क्योंकि हर रिश्ता है स्वाद से जुड़ा।
बिबल में गुलिस्तां की ये कुछ लजीज फरिश्ते, जब साथ घुले तो जी ललचाए और दिल कहे कि स्वाद की जुबान में खुद को ऐसा डुबाऊं कि निकल ना पाऊं। विमल की जुबान कुछ है ही ऐसी, मानते हैं ना? विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
अब छोलिया हो या लोबिया, सफेद चने या काले चने,
सब कुछ मजेदार बने।
MDH